The chandeliers of the Crystal Grand Hotel glittered like frozen waterfalls, casting golden light across the marble floors. Waiters moved swiftly between the tables, balancing trays of champagne glasses and hors d'oeuvres as a buzz of anticipation filled the room. Tonight wasn't just another evening, it was the eve of a historic $3.5 billion partnership between Titan Enterprises and Orion Technologies. Cameras, journalists, and investors waited like vultures, ready to capture every gesture of the men in charge. At the heart of it all sat Marcus Hale, the billionaire CEO of Titan Enterprises. Marcus was a man who thrived on control, who wore arrogance like a tailored suit. His wealth and power had convinced him that the world bent to his will. Dressed in a navy suit stitched in Italy, his gold cufflinks glimmering under the lights, Marcus sat at the center table like a king awaiting tribute. He didn't see people, he saw tools, some useful, some disposable. As the clock neared 7, Marcus beckoned a waitress with the curl of a finger, not even bothering to look at her face. "Coffee. Black. And make it quick." The waitress was Alana Johnson, a young black woman in her late 20s. She had been working since dawn, balancing her job at the hotel with caring for her 6-year-old son, Isaiah. Life had never been kind to her. Her husband had abandoned her years ago, leaving nothing but debts and unanswered questions. Still, Alana carried herself with quiet dignity, never allowing her struggles to strip away her grace. "Yes, sir. Right away," she replied softly, keeping her tone polite. Marcus waved a dismissive hand, his attention already shifting back to the men surrounding him. Alana hurried toward the kitchen, weaving between tables with practiced ease. Her legs ached, and her hands trembled slightly from fatigue, but she steadied herself. Tonight, of all nights, mistakes could not happen. The place was filled with the world's most powerful men. When she returned minutes later, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting from the cup, she approached Marcus's table carefully. The weight of dozens of eyes seemed to press on her back, but she remained steady. She set the cup before him, lowering the saucer gently onto the table. But as fate would have it, one tiny drop of coffee slipped over the rim and landed on the saucer. Marcus's eyes flicked to it instantly. He froze, then slowly lifted his gaze to Alana. Silence spread like wildfire. He pushed the cup back as though it were poisoned. "Are you blind?" His voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Conversations around the room stopped. "Do you call this service? What kind of stupid waitress can't carry a single cup without spilling it?" Alana's breath caught in her throat. The word, stupid, hung in the air like smoke. Her cheeks burned, and her hands trembled, but she fought to hold her composure. She needed this job. Rent was due in 3 days, Isaiah's school fees loomed over her, and the thought of losing even a single shift terrified her. I'm sorry, sir," she whispered, lowering her eyes, her voice nearly drowned by the pounding of her heart. But Marcus wasn't done. He leaned back in his chair, smirking as if he had just proven a point. "This is why people like you never rise above mediocrity. You can't even get the basics right. Useless." The words hit harder than any slap. A quiet gasp came from a woman sitting at a nearby table. Someone else muttered, "That's too much." Alana's lips trembled, but she bit the inside of her cheek to stop herself from crying. She wouldn't break. Not here, not in front of him. She simply nodded, collected the cup with steady hands, and turned to leave. But she wasn't alone in her humiliation. Across the room, Victor Lang had seen everything. Victor, CEO of Orion Technologies, was Marcus's opposite in every way. Where Marcus built his empire through intimidation, Victor built his through trust and loyalty. Tall, with graying hair at his temples and a calm presence, Victor was respected not only for his brilliance in technology but for the fairness with which he treated everyone, from janitors to executives. Victor's sharp eyes followed the exchange, his jaw tightening. He had always believed that how a man treated those with less power revealed his true character. And what he had just witnessed told him everything he needed to know about Marcus Hale. Alana, meanwhile, slipped into the kitchen, her hands shaking as she set the tray down. "It's fine," she whispered to herself, trying to swallow the sting of his words. But the lump in her throat refused to go away. Back in the dining hall, Marcus laughed, brushing off the silence he had created. "Some people just don't belong in places like this," he said to no one in particular, his voice dripping with contempt. But not everyone agreed. Guests whispered among themselves. Some frowned. Others shook their heads. For the first time that evening, the room's admiration for Marcus dimmed. Victor leaned back in his chair, watching, calculating. This deal was supposed to be about innovation, about creating something that would shape the future. But as he glanced at Marcus, the smug grin, the careless cruelty, he began to question whether this partnership was worth the cost. And while Marcus thought he had shown dominance, he had in fact shown weakness. His empire, worth billions, now balanced on the edge of his pride and a single cruel insult hurled at a tired waitress. He had no idea that the night, which was supposed to cement his legacy, was about to become the night that destroyed it. The silence in the Crystal Grand Hotel was so sharp that even the clinking of cutlery in the distance seemed to echo. Marcus Hale smirked, confident that his outburst had once again cemented his authority. For years, his cruelty had been overlooked, even tolerated, because of the billions he commanded. Tonight, he assumed, would be no different. But then, Victor Lang rose from his chair. The tall CEO of Orion Technologies carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who never needed to raise his voice to be heard. His presence alone silenced the murmurs that had begun to ripple through the room. Guests turned in their seats, sensing something extraordinary was about to unfold. "Mr. Hale," Victor began, his tone calm but his words carrying across the hall, "I came here tonight under the impression that we were entering a partnership built on respect, innovation, and professionalism. But what I just witnessed tells me that impression was wrong." Marcus blinked, caught off guard. He let out a short, dismissive laugh. "Oh, come on, Victor. Don't tell me you're bothered by that. She's just a waitress. This is a multi-billion-dollar deal. We can't let something so trivial derail it." The room stirred. Some gasped. Others exchanged disbelieving looks. Victor's gaze, however, remained steady, piercing through Marcus like a blade. "Just a waitress," Victor repeated slowly, his tone sharp enough to cut through the thick air. "That waitress is a human being. She works hard, probably harder than either of us, to provide for her family. If you can't treat the person serving your coffee with dignity, how can I trust you to treat my company, my employees, or this partnership with respect?" Whispers erupted around the tables. Investors leaned in, journalists pulled out their phones, recording every second. The moment was already becoming history. Marcus's jaw tightened. For the first time that night, he looked nervous. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing at the onlookers. "Victor, you're overreacting. It was a joke. People are too sensitive these days. Let's sign the papers and move on." But Victor shook his head. "No, Marcus. Respect is not negotiable." He turned to his assistant. "Cancel the deal." The words struck the hall like a thunderclap. A collective gasp filled the air. Several glasses clinked as hands trembled. Marcus leapt to his feet, his voice desperate now. "Victor, think about what you're doing. This is $3.5 billion we're talking about." Victor looked him straight in the eye. "I am thinking. And unlike you, I see beyond money. Integrity matters more. My answer is final." Marcus's face turned red, his composure cracking like glass. He opened his mouth to argue further, but it was too late. The cameras had captured everything. Investors, once loyal, exchanged uneasy glances. Shareholders in the crowd whispered furiously into their phones. Across the room, Alana had reappeared from the kitchen, clutching a tray with trembling hands. She froze as she realized the attention wasn't on her anymore, it was on Marcus. Her heart raced as she watched the scene unfold, struggling to believe that a man of Victor's stature was standing up for her. Victor turned then, walking calmly toward Alana. The crowd parted instinctively, making way. When he reached her, he offered a gentle nod. "You handled yourself with grace," he said, his voice softer now, but still carrying weight. "Don't let anyone's cruelty make you doubt your worth. What you did tonight, holding your head high, is far greater than anything that man achieved at this table." Alana's eyes filled with tears. She bit her lip, trying not to cry in front of all those people, but her heart swelled with a mixture of gratitude and relief. For so long, she had been invisible, just another tired waitress serving the powerful. Tonight, for the first time, she felt seen. The crowd broke into quiet applause. Some clapped out of respect for Victor, others out of admiration for Alana. Marcus, meanwhile, stood rigid, humiliated, his empire cracking beneath him. By morning, the story had exploded. Headlines blazed across every major news outlet. Billionaire CEO humiliates waitress, loses $3.5 billion deal on the spot. Integrity over money. Victor Lang walks away after Marcus hails public outburst. Waitress insulted, billionaire empire shaken. Clips of the confrontation went viral within hours. Millions watched, shared, and commented. Social media was ablaze with outrage toward Marcus and admiration for Victor. Titan Enterprises' stock began to plummet. By midday, the company had lost nearly 15% of its value. Shareholders demanded answers, board members called emergency meetings, and Marcus found himself drowning in a sea of lawsuits and angry letters. Reporters hounded him at every turn, but his carefully rehearsed apologies came too late. "I didn't mean it, it was just a misunderstanding," he stammered before cameras, but the world had already judged him. To them, he was no longer the untouchable billionaire, he was a cautionary tale of arrogance destroying an empire overnight. Alana, however, woke up the next morning to a life she hadn't imagined. At the hotel, the owner called her into the office. "Alana," he said, his voice filled with pride, "you showed strength under pressure. That's the kind of leadership this place needs. Starting next week, I'm promoting you to restaurant supervisor." Her eyes widened. A promotion meant a higher salary, stable hours, and finally being able to provide Isaiah with more than just the bare minimum. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered, thank you so much." But the surprises weren't over. Later that afternoon, she received a phone call she would never forget. "Hello, Ms. Johnson. This is Victor Lang," came the calm, familiar voice. Her heart nearly stopped. "Mr. Lang, I wanted to personally thank you," Victor said warmly. "Your dignity reminded me why respect matters more than profit. I'd like to extend something to you. My foundation offers scholarships for children of hardworking single parents. If you're willing, I'd like to sponsor your son's education. Fully." Alana's knees nearly gave out. She pressed a hand to her mouth, sobbing softly. For years, she had worried about Isaiah's future, about how she'd ever give him the opportunities he deserved. Now, a door she never dreamed of was opening. "Thank you, sir," she whispered through her tears. "You don't know what this means to us." Victor's voice was gentle. "I think I do. Keep holding your head high, Ms. Johnson. The world needs more people like you." When she hung up, she sank to the floor, clutching the phone to her chest. For once, her tears weren't from exhaustion or despair, they were from hope. That night, as she tucked Isaiah into bed, he asked innocently, "Mommy, why are you smiling so much today?" She kissed his forehead and whispered, "Because today, someone reminded me that no matter how small people think we are, we matter. And so do you, my love. So do you." Meanwhile, Marcus Hale sat alone in his penthouse, staring at news reports flashing across the TV. His phone buzzed with messages from angry board members and panicked investors. The world had moved on without him, replacing his name with shame. He had lost billions, but more than that, he had lost his reputation. And all because he thought a single waitress wasn't worth respect. As the city lights twinkled outside his window, Marcus realized too late that true power was never about money. It was about humanity. And that was something he had never understood, something a young waitress named Alana Johnson had taught the world in one unforgettable night.